There is something about you that most people never fully understand, a quiet depth that lives just beneath the surface of everything you do, everything you say, everything you carefully hold back. You feel things in layers, not all at once, not loudly, not in ways that are easy to explain. You feel things the way water moves steadily, quietly, covering the shape of the floor beneath it without ever making a sound. And the strange truth is that most people who love you still don't fully know that about you. They see the grace, they see the warmth. They see the way you enter a room and somehow make it feel more balanced just by being there. But very few of them have ever sat with you in the silence long enough to understand that something inside of you has been waiting. Something inside of you has been holding on to a feeling that you haven't been able to name yet, not because you lack the words. You, of all people, have always had words, but because some feelings for you are so layered, so intertwined with memory and longing and hope, that finding the right language for them feels almost impossible. And so you carry them quietly, beautifully, with that particular grace that is entirely your own. But something is shifting right now. Something in the atmosphere around you has begun to move. And the part of you that is deeply intuitive, the part that has always known things before it had any evidence to know them, that part of you already feels it. You may have felt it in small moments lately. A pause before you speak, where you used to rush to fill the silence, a dream that lingered past morning, a conversation that felt different than it should have. Something stirring just beneath the ordinary rhythm of your days. And what I want you to understand right now in this moment is that what is stirring is not random. It is not coincidence. It is not your imagination working overtime. What is stirring is something that has been in motion for a long time, something you have been quietly building toward, even in the seasons when you didn't realize you were building anything at all. You have always been someone who believes in fairness, not just in the moral sense, though that too, but in a far more tender sense. You believe that love should be equal, that effort should be met with effort, that the care you pour into someone's life should eventually somehow find its way back to you. And for a long time, maybe a very long time, you have been living in a kind of quiet imbalance that you didn't want to admit. Not because you were weak, not because you were blind, but because admitting it felt like giving up on something you still believed in. And you are not someone who gives up easily. You are not someone who lets go of hope. Even when hope becomes heavy, you carry it. You have always carried it, and there is something deeply admirable about that. But there is also something I need to say to you now, gently, because it is the truth that is at the heart of everything that is about to change for you. You have been giving from a place of emptiness. Not always, not in every relationship, but in at least one area of your life, and you know exactly which one. I mean, you have been pouring water from a vessel that hasn't been refilled in a long time. And the extraordinary thing about you, the thing that makes you who you are, is that you did it anyway. You kept showing up. You kept offering your care, your attention, your patience, your quiet brilliance. You kept being generous even when generosity felt like sacrifice. And the universe has seen every single moment of that. Every small surrender, every time you swallowed something painful and chose peace over conflict, every time you prioritized someone else's comfort over the truth of what you were feeling, none of it has been invisible. None of it has been lost. There is a particular kind of emotional courage that belongs to Libra. It is not the loud courage of someone who storms into battle. It is the far quieter, far more difficult courage of someone who continues to believe in beauty even after they've been disappointed by it, of someone who continues to reach for connection even after being let down, of someone who continues to hold space for other people's complexity while quietly managing their own. That is your courage, and it is real, and it matters far more than you have allowed yourself to believe. But here is where something begins to feel different. Here is where the shift truly begins. You have spent a significant amount of time becoming something for other people, becoming the one who understands, the one who mediates, the one who smooths the rough edges of a situation before anyone else even notices they're rough. You have been so focused on what the people around you need that you have quietly, almost imperceptibly, begun to lose track of what you need. And I don't mean that in a dramatic sense. You haven't fallen apart. You haven't become someone unrecognizable to yourself. But there is a version of you, a quieter, more honest version that has been waiting behind all of that effortful grace, waiting for permission to be fully seen, waiting for someone to ask the right question, waiting for a moment of stillness long enough that you could finally hear yourself again. That stillness is arriving, not as emptiness, not as loneliness, not as something to fear, but as a genuine opening, a clearing in the noise of everything you've been managing, everything you've been holding, everything you've been diplomatically navigating. And in that clearing, something is becoming visible that has always been there but has been obscured by the busyness of your role in everyone else's life. What is becoming visible is the truth of what you actually want, not the want that is sensible, not the want that is easy to justify to other people, the deep underneath want, the one that lives so far beneath the surface of your daily choices that you sometimes wonder if wanting it makes you selfish. It doesn't. It makes you human. It makes you exactly the kind of human who deserves to receive what they've been so generously giving. And now, here, this is where something remarkable begins to unfold for you. Because the universe operates on a kind of sacred reciprocity that is far more intelligent than we usually give it credit for. It watches, it measures, not harshly, not in a punishing or judgmental way, but with an incredible precision that eventually always brings things back into alignment. And you have been out of alignment for long enough. You have been the counterweight for so many other people's scales that your own has been tilting without anyone noticing. And now something is tilting back. Think about the person you were before the weight of all of this settled on you. Before you learned to make yourself smaller in certain spaces. Before you started measuring your words with such careful precision, afraid that the full truth of how you feel might be too much for someone to hold. There was a version of you who was lighter. Not naive, you have never been naive, but lighter in the sense of being more freely yourself, more willing to stand in the middle of your own feelings without apologizing for them. That version of you is not gone. That version of you has just been waiting very patiently for the conditions to be right. Those conditions are beginning to arrive. There is a relationship or the possibility of a relationship that is on the edge of revealing something to you that is going to feel simultaneously surprising and deeply familiar. The way certain truths feel when they finally surface, like you always knew somewhere, but you needed the moment to confirm it. This could be a relationship that already exists and is about to reach a new level of honesty, or it could be something new arriving in your life that carries an energy you haven't felt in a while, the energy of being truly, carefully, specifically chosen, not out of convenience, not out of habit, but chosen in the deliberate way that you have always, in the quietest part of yourself, hoped someone would choose you. Because Libra, at the center of everything, beneath all the elegance, beneath the wisdom, beneath the way you navigate beauty and conflict and human complexity with such remarkable skill, at the very center of all of that, there is a longing for love that is as deep and as constant as anything you carry. You were made for connection, not the surface kind, not the casual, pleasant, easy kind, though you can do that too, effortlessly. You were made for the kind of connection that changes the temperature of a room, the kind where two people sit in silence and there is still communication happening, the kind where someone knows your mood before you've said a word, the kind where being yourself fully, unguardedly, without the careful editing is not just acceptable but genuinely welcome. That is what your heart has always been reaching for. And there is no shame in that. There is only the truth of who you are. And the truth of who you are is arriving somewhere new. You are standing at the edge of a version of your life where the emotional labor is more equally distributed, where the love you give is the love that returns, where you no longer have to carry the exhaustion of being the one who always tries harder, cares more, stays longer. This doesn't mean conflict will disappear. It doesn't mean everything will become suddenly simple. You are far too nuanced a person to want simple. But it means the emotional mathematics of your life are about to shift in your favor in a way that is going to feel both enormous and strangely quiet, because the most significant changes in a Libra's life often arrive not with fanfare, but with a feeling of settling, of something finally clicking into the right position. There is also something happening in your inner world right now that deserves attention, because it is not a small thing. You have been in the privacy of your own mind, having a conversation with yourself that you haven't fully voiced to anyone yet. A reckoning of sorts, not a crisis. You are beyond crisis. You are too grounded for that. But a quiet, honest inventory of where you are, what you are doing, why you have been doing it, and whether the version of your life you are living right now is the version that actually fits the person you have become, because you have changed quietly, gradually, in the way that real growth always happens. You have become someone who knows more, sees more clearly, and is ready to live with a little more honesty than before. And that readiness is not something to take lightly. That readiness is a signal. There are people in your life who knew you before this version of you began to emerge. Some of them will celebrate who you are becoming. Some of them, and this is the part that is sometimes difficult for your sign, some of them will find the change uncomfortable. Because a Libra who is fully aligned, a Libra who has stopped shrinking to keep the peace, a Libra who is standing in their own truth without apologizing for it, is a different kind of presence than the one certain people have become accustomed to. And not everyone adjusts easily to that. But here is what I want you to hear. The people who love you for what you do for them, rather than for who you actually are not the people who belong in the next chapter of your story. The next chapter is being written for the people who see you clearly and choose you anyway, who want the realness of you, not just the polished performance of grace. This is where a great deal of your current emotional tension lives, isn't it? In the space between who you have been performing as and who you actually are. Not that the performance has been dishonest. You are not someone who operates from deception. But there is a difference between choosing to lead with your best self and feeling like your full self is too complicated, too emotional, too much for the spaces you occupy. And somewhere along the way, you have come to believe in certain relationships, in certain contexts, that you are too much, that your depth is a burden, that your sensitivity is a liability, that your need for genuine, reciprocal love is asking for more than the world tends to offer. None of that is true. Your depth is not a burden. It is the thing that makes you capable of a quality of love and understanding that most people only read about. Your sensitivity is not a liability. It is a form of intelligence, one of the highest forms that allows you to read a room, feel another person's unspoken pain, and respond to what is actually needed rather than just what is visible. And your need for reciprocal love is not excessive. It is, in fact, one of the most reasonable and beautiful things about you. You simply know what real connection feels like, and you refuse to fully settle for anything less, even when you have compromised, even when you have quietly accepted less than you deserved. A part of you has never quite surrendered the belief that something more is possible, and that part of you is right. Because here, in this unfolding, in this shift that is quietly gaining momentum in your life, something is moving towards you that carries the weight of an answered prayer you stopped saying out loud. You may have given up on voicing it. You may have become too careful, too aware of disappointment to let yourself want certain things too loudly, but the wanting never disappeared. It went underground. It became a quiet hum beneath everything you do, informing your choices in ways you don't always recognize, pulling you gently in the direction of what you know in your deepest self is meant for you. And what is meant for you is beginning to declare itself. It will not look exactly the way you imagined. That is the nature of real gifts. They rarely arrive in the packaging we expect, but the feeling of it will be unmistakable. There will be a moment, and it may come in the most ordinary context imaginable, where something inside of you goes very still and very clear at the same time, where the noise of all the uncertainty you've been carrying gets quiet, and what remains is a simple, certain, unambiguous sense of, yes, this, here, now. This is what it was supposed to feel like. This is what I was waiting for. You will not have to force it. You will not have to manage it or massage it into shape. You will not have to be less than yourself for it to work. It will simply fit. In the way that certain things fit Libra beautifully, harmoniously, with an elegance that feels as though it was always the design. But before that moment fully arrives, there is something being asked of you in this interim space, something gentle but real. You are being asked to stop managing your own emotions quite so efficiently. There is a habit you have, and it comes from both intelligence and self-protection, of processing your feelings with such speed and skill that you move through them without ever fully inhabiting them. You feel something, assess it, contextualize it, find the most graceful response to it, and move on. And while this makes you extraordinarily functional, it means that certain emotions, particularly the tender, vulnerable, longing ones, never get the chance to be fully felt. They get processed instead of experienced. And when emotions don't get to be fully experienced, they don't fully release. They settle into the body. They show up later as a heaviness you can't explain, a weariness that isn't really about tiredness, a sense of low-grade longing that you can't quite locate. Let yourself feel what is moving in you right now, not in the edited, presentable version, not in the version you would share at dinner with someone who might not understand, in the full, unedited, private version. Let the longing be longing. Let the tiredness be tiredness. Let the hope be hope, without immediately measuring its probability. because there is wisdom in your feelings that is beyond what your remarkable analytical mind can access. And right now, that deeper wisdom is trying to tell you something that logic alone cannot deliver. It is telling you that you are ready, that all of the patience, all of the grace, all of the quiet faithfulness you have extended toward your own life, even in the difficult seasons, it has been building something. Not just character, though certainly that, but something more tangible, a foundation, a readiness, an energetic coherence that is now making you magnetic in ways you are only beginning to understand. People are going to start responding to you differently. Some of them already are, and you may have noticed it without fully understanding why. There is something about a Libra who has found their own equilibrium, not the performed balance, but the real inner settledness that draws people in with a force that can almost feel surprising. Because when you are truly aligned with yourself, when you are no longer working overtime to maintain an image or smooth a conflict or keep a peace that isn't yours to keep, the natural radiance of who you are becomes fully visible, and it is considerable. You have always been magnetic, but aligned, you are something else entirely. There are people who are going to want to be near you in this coming time. Some of them you already know. Some of them are approaching from directions you haven't anticipated. And among them, woven into the fabric of what is arriving, there is a presence, or the possibility of a presence, that is going to ask something real of you, not in a demanding way, not in a way that costs you something, but in the way that genuine intimacy always does. It is going to ask you to be seen fully, without the softening, without the diplomatic edit, without the version of yourself that you've calibrated for easy consumption. It is going to ask for the real you. And the beautiful, slightly terrifying truth is that you are now finally ready to offer that. The fear of being too much has protected you, but it has also kept you slightly outside of the very intimacy you most desire. There is a bridge that has been forming between where you have been and where you are going, and it is made entirely of your willingness to let yourself be known, to show the tender places without bracing for the reaction, to say the true thing instead of the careful thing, to trust, even with the memory of disappointment still somewhere in your body, that this time, in this context, with this energy, it is safe to be fully present. And it is. I want you to know that. Whatever your nervous system is still holding from before, from the moments when openness was met with carelessness, or vulnerability was met with discomfort, those chapters do not define what is ahead. They informed you. They made you more aware, more discerning, more knowing of what genuine love actually feels like versus what it merely resembles. And that discernment is a gift. It means that when the real thing appears, you will know it, not because someone told you, not because it checked a list, but because something in your body will recognize it at a frequency beneath thought. There is also something I want to say about the people who have been on the edges of your life, the ones you've been holding at a slight distance. Not out of coldness, but out of that careful Libra self-preservation that you've learned to practice. Some of those people deserve to be let a little closer, and some of them do not. And the extraordinary thing about where you are right now is that your ability to tell the difference has never been sharper. You have graduated, in a sense, from needing to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. You are allowed to trust your instincts. You are allowed to feel someone's energy and decide quietly and without drama whether that energy belongs in your life. That is not judgment. That is wisdom. And You have earned it. The emotional theme that runs through everything I've been saying, the single thread that connects all of these layers, is this: you are arriving at yourself, not at a destination that is outside of you, not at something you have to achieve or earn or perform correctly to receive, but at the truest, most integrated, most free version of who you actually are. And this arrival changes everything. It changes how you love. It changes who you allow to love you. It changes what you ask for and what you are willing to accept and what you recognize with quiet certainty that you are done tolerating. This is the shift. This is what has been building. This is what the quiet unsettledness of the recent season has been preparing you for. Not suffering for its own sake. You have never been someone who believes in suffering for its own sake, but a necessary gestation, a period of internal reorganization that happens before a Libra moves into a new chapter with their full self intact, rather than leaving pieces of themselves behind in the rush to get to the next thing. You will not be leaving pieces behind this time. You will be arriving whole. And the life that is waiting for you on the other side of this arrival is one that will feel at its very core like something you recognize. Not because you've lived it before, but because some part of you in the most private chamber of your hope has always known it was possible. Always known, even when the evidence seemed to argue otherwise, that this kind of peace was real, that this kind of love was real, that this particular quality of being fully seen and fully valued and fully met, not just in the bright moments, but in the complicated ones too, was not just a beautiful idea, but an actual, livable, receivable truth. It is real, and it is closer to you than it has ever been. Let yourself breathe into that. Let yourself feel the weight of all the patient waiting begin to release from your shoulders, because the waiting, the careful, tender, faithful waiting, is almost done. And what is arriving is not something you will have to chase or convince or negotiate into existence. It is something that is moving toward you with the same quiet certainty that you have always, at your best, moved toward everything that truly matters. There will be a moment in the not distant future when you look around at the shape of your life and feel, perhaps for the first time in longer than you can remember, that things are genuinely, deeply, sustainably okay. Not perfect. You have never needed perfect, but okay in the way that matters. Okay in the bone, okay in the quiet, okay in the places you usually check last. And in that moment, you will understand that every season that came before it was not punishment or abandonment or evidence that you asked for too much. It was preparation. It was the universe taking the time to build something worthy of you, rather than simply handing you the first available version of what you needed. You deserve the real version. You have always deserved the real version. And the real version is on its way.